you have two choices in life. Like you can have American public services and American levels of taxation, or you can have European public services and European levels of taxation. But if you want to have the European levels of taxation, I beg your pardon, of public services, you really do have to pay more tax. And since Thatcher, at least, we have not been prepared to have an adult conversation about tax in this country. We keep on acting like everything's going to improve, health service, education, whatever. But we're going to, every time you hear from us about economics, we're going to be cutting taxes. And these two things cannot be true at the same time. We need to have an adult conversation about it. I'm sorry to say that Labour isn't the party that's going to start that one. And certainly none of the parties that have come beforehand have either.
No, well, I was doing some research on tax recently and some of the traps that exist and just how ridiculously complicated the system is. And there was a time where Labour promised not to increase income taxes. So they jacked up NI when they came in.
Exactly.
It's like NI is just a second income tax, really. It should be merged for simplicity. There's a lot of arguments as to why. It would just remove a lot of administration for everyone. But it's politically suitable to have this other lever that they can pull, to use your term, that isn't understood. Because when I ask someone in the street, what's your tax rate? They go 20%, 40%. They don't whack on the NI.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So it, like you say, the tax system is complicated and it suits politics, and there's no adult conversation there. Like inheritance tax, there's no adult conversation about inheritance tax. They just use it as a political tool.
I mean, there's a point where Ed Balls and Gordon Brown are chatting because they know they have to raise tax somewhere. Someone mentions VAT and they're like, no, that's never going to work. And then they mention income tax and they're like, that doesn't work because it's really unpopular. But when they mentioned raising national insurance, most of the public at that point thought that meant they got more stuff.
Patriotic. They're like, that pays for the NHS and pensions.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's
but, I mean, they thought it was a better. If you started talking about cutting national insurance, the public thought that they were losing something at that stage. Like it was actually damaging towards them. It's just the words national insurance have just been poisonously good branding. Yeah. It's done a lot of damage how good that branding is. It's a bit like Greenbelt. Greenbelt is really good branding and it's completely ruined us as a country. So it means we don't build anything in areas that are not that green.
Yeah.
So over and over again, you get that problem. I think now that's changed with national insurance. I get the sense that people kind of do recognize what it means and its implications, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like there is no pot for state pension. It's a Ponzi scheme, essentially. Like national insurance is not like funding this thing. It's all
there is no pot anywhere.
Yeah,
it's just a tax. That is what it is. It is a tax. In general, like you saw it with our last budget of like the budget is the most insane conceivable way to pass tax policy. Just it's madness. Like you should pass policy in any normal way just by doing a ministerial statement or publishing legislation. And we talk about it like we would talk anything else. Instead, we turn it into this bizarre act of theatre where, the Chancellor comes out now twice a year. So it's double the problem that we had when he was just doing it once a year. There's all of this political pressure on him, really acute political pressure for the party, but also for his own personal political advancement. And out of that situation, you create a tax system. It's just like an incredible way to go about things. And that's where you get your insanely complex, where you have a marginal rate that once you earn over 50,000 spikes into infinity and then goes down, and then you earn 100,000, it goes up. But if you're paying 130,000, you're paying less and someone is paying, it just makes no sense. And it doesn't even make no sense in a purposeful ideological way. It is literally not the result of anyone sitting down and asking themselves, what is this system for? And what is it trying to achieve? For a long time in my life, I would sit and like when your sort of tax statement comes in, I would just sort of look and just be like, am I just like adulting very badly? But I just can't make head or tail of this. It's so impenetrable. And then I realized this is not my fault. It's their fault. It's always the same realization I come to in my life. It's not my fault. Someone else did it, but it really is their fault. It's too complex.
Can they not reform the tax system or just simplify it? Is that if the Labour came and said, we're going to fix the taxes in the UK and make it a lot more simple, wouldn't everyone be like, yeah, that's a great idea?
No one has the bravery for that.
I'll do it. I'll step up, guys.
Why can't politicians be brave?
Look, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be straight up about this. There would be, if I was in that position, I'm not sure that I would either. Because you just think like, there's only two ways to do it, because you're going to have to change imagine what happened to Theresa May, right, with the social care tax during the 2017 election, where she just basically bottomed out. Like her whole campaign fell apart on the basis of that one tax. And you see that over and over again. Same thing happened to Gordon Brown when he talked about getting rid of the basic rate on income tax. It can destroy you. And what you're going to have to do is change everything to a certain extent all at once, from council tax to income to derivatives to assets. And there's going to be a lot of losers. There's going to be winners too, right? Like, especially on council tax. And most of the time you think like that person deserves to win. Like that council tax is an obscene tax at the moment, given how dated it is, how archaic the basis is that we evaluate it. But the people that lose are going to scream loudest. And that is going to be a political nightmare. The only two ways of doing it is by trying to balance the losses and the wins. But that's going to be so complex that it'll probably blow up in your face, or by just reducing the overall tax yield. That's probably the most realistic way to do it while you simplify the system. But no government comes into it, especially not like a new Labour government in the middle of stagnation and inflation goes, we're going to reduce the overall tax yield to simplify things. When
you've got a 200-seat majority, that is the time to do it. Isn't it? When you've got the most credit, or whatever built up, that's when you be brave.
But also you think like for a Labour person, the funny thing is, I believe in tax simplification. I'm basically classic London lefty. But for most Labour people, their heart, if you think, what are we going to try and do with this brief flicker of a moment that comes every sort of 15, 30 years? It's not tax simplification. That's not what it is. That's just not what it is.
The conversation we had with Ian Dunn is one of my favourite ever episodes of the podcast. So you can watch the full thing right here.